Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Limelight. And my name is Sima Polo. The government of Uganda has moved to regulate paternity testing services in this country, and according to the government spokesperson, who is also the Minister for Information, Dr. Chris Badiomonsi, this move follows concerns raised by several stakeholders, including religious leaders, politicians, health counselors, in relation to the rising cases of paternity tests and the demand for especially men to confirm that their children are their real offsprings. Now, it has actually turned into a brewing storm. Everyone is rushing for DNA testing, and this week the legislators in Parliament also raised this concern, saying that it is necessary to have a regulation in place, a framework that will guide the paternity tests, and of course look at how it can prevent what they called a catastrophe, as the major component of the society, which is the family, is threatened to be torn apart. Now, to look into this issue, we need experts, and in the studios we have Grace Nachiri Jarwanga, who works with Chapter 4 Empowerment and Rights Uganda, and this is an NGO that also fights for the rights of the underprivileged. Welcome to the program, Grace.
Thank you so much. Hello. Yes.
Well, let's go straight, and we need you to tell us whether there is need for such a legislation that will regulate paternity testing services in this country.
Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Grace, as introduced, Nachiri Jarwanga. For me now, I'm loving this conversation because the first time we came to air, everyone was angry, people were annoyed, people didn't want us to say. But I've been liking the conversations that Ugandans are speaking. Ugandans have spoken, and Ugandans continue to speak. Yes, legislation is as delayed as yesterday, and it is needed as early as yesterday, because one, I think Uganda, not even thinking because it's my country, is one of those countries in the world that really cherishes and puts a lot of effort to protect the family institution.
Yeah, true.
That is why even in court, sometimes when people want to divorce, there is a lot of supportive mechanisms to ensure that we save the marriages. So the same applies to the DNA. This conversation must be rested somewhere. And the somewhere is the legal instrument which protects everyone, the ones who are not interested in testing, the ones who have fear for testing, for DNA or taking paternity tests, the ones who have gone to test. And either way, if the results are negative or positive, all these parties need a lot of support. And the support is the legal instruments. The institutions that are offering services on paternity, this needs to also be sorted. However, having this regulation is very good, but we also need a law. And we know this country has had a marriage bill that has been shelved in Parliament, I think, for the last 50 years. So if the marriage bill could pass into law, some of these things could be put into the marriage bill. Then the regulation is the regulation for marriage. Because look, today we are handling DNA. Tomorrow something might come up. So this is an eye-opener. This is an indicator that we should pass. Parliament must pass the marriage bill, and many of these things will be sorted.
Okay, Grace, give us some circumstances under which the family could be at risk without this regulation?
Oh, thank you so much. Because one, like you've seen, a man receives results, maybe out of the 9 children, only 1 is his child. But on coming, he never told the wife. He just came with the children. Yet when they decided to make love, they were 2. Now look, he goes back and he's like, this woman is going to see me today. And we are all watching. We are all seeing the institution that has carried out, supported him to do the paternity test, cannot refer him, for example, for psychosocial support. The children, look at the children, innocent souls. These adults have issues, but the children are totally innocent.
Are innocent indeed.
So what happens to them? So, and imagine, all these things are going viral. We've lost a lot of confidentiality. You will see the names of the children being mentioned, the passport issues, and even we are into the era of technology. So that means a record is being kept.
Okay.
So tomorrow, where is the plight of these children as adults? So for me, I think as we move on, the family is getting torn apart, and even the situation is even beyond the children. Now you, the man, you go and test. There is a scenario. He went and tested his children. Then his father also decided to test him. It turns out that he's also not the biological child of his own father. So you can see the trend. That is why we need paternity tests. I mean, we need a law, but also we need to get to the root cause of all these problems.
One issue, Grace, one issue that has been raised is about the quality assurance in regard to the testing services and testing centers. And the issue was that some unscrupulous individuals could even start peddling fake services and taking advantage of unsuspecting husbands who would want to confirm their children's paternity condition. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's very true. That is why we need government to pronounce itself and say, okay, you need this service, this is the place. And I think the service should be free. But also, besides the institutions, the private organizations offering services, also the issue of corruption. If this country, we are still grappling, struggling with corruption, how sure are we that even in these labs, people are not
the results are authentic?
Yes, because Uganda, someone might be running away from providing for the family. Yes, because he's being held accountable, or he has a new wife and he's like, okay, I'm done with this one because the burden will be heavier. And we have learned over time that sometimes when there is intimate partner violence, some men, not all, when they hate the mothers or the wives, they also hate the children as well. So it's a very, very big conversation, and passing the regulation alone is not enough. We need an entire law that will protect the family institution. Yes.
So what else besides a regulation that will provide guidance? What else? Because we see, like in mental health services, you need to have mental hospital, health facilities. You need to have trained staff who will actually handle issues related to mental services. What else we need besides having only the regulation? Do we have the supportive environment to make sure that these paternity tests are carried out effectively, and of course those supportive frameworks?
Thank you. Actually, we need a multi-sectoral approach because someone might test or is not willing to do a paternity test, but his is not psychosocial support. He needs another completely different service.
True.
That's why there is need for mapping, both private and public institutions. Who are these people already who are doing something? Then it's from there that government could also now say, okay, what is missing? Maybe we also need a study to understand what service is actually missing as we do this multi-sectoral referral network. And given the nature of this conversation about paternity test, you might find that people need multiple services. It's not just one service, and it's not a one-off, and also it needs sustainability, and there should be a standard that everyone can access and be served. Not like maybe if you have money, if you don't have money. So, and this is a long conversation, and really the need has been there, but prioritization by government is the other. Though government has, we have already facilities like Uganda Police Force, we have the Child and Family Protection.
Oh, yes.
Courts of law, we have the Family and Children Court. Of course, we have probation. The goodwill is already there. So we just need to get the services to be offered. But again, our officers may need, with time to time, like capacity enhancement. As you can see, the dynamics around the family institution are changing. But beyond even the formal institutions, we have the informal. And you know, most of our people believe in the informal institutions. So how are we linking the formal and informal? Because there are people who might not be willing to go to probation, but he wants to go to a religious leader. He wants to go to maybe even a traditional healer. These are people we are ignoring, but people go to seek services there, and we cannot stop people from going there. And actually, our support should be right from the local council ones, especially local council 1 and 3 courts, because those are the closest courts to our people. If I ask a question to government, are the LC1 and LC3 courts ready to support people or families who are having problems around issues of children and paternity tests, go to test, don't go to test? Are they ready? That's a question I throw to government. Maybe the answer is yes and no, but I know they are not ready.
From your submission, Grace, it looks like this needs time. This needs consultations of, from different stakeholders. So are you suggesting that possibly those who are moving to have a regulation in place should take their time, should exhaust all the available avenues to ensure that they bring a comprehensive legislation that will stand the test of time?
That could be done as we proceed. Already we could start with what we have. Like if Uganda Police Force has, like I said, an office for the family, those could already be reinforced to start the support. We have civil society organizations. In some districts, for example, like in Kampala here, CEDOVIP, Center for Domestic Violence Prevention, runs the whole referral pathway. How is government leveraging on such a network, for example? So because the need is broad and a little sensitive as well, we could already start with what we have as we strengthen or tighten the whole multi-sectoral structure. But believe me, having a specific regulation alone around DNA issues will mean tomorrow we shall keep on ending up with many regulations about the family. So having a marriage bill where we put all these many issues is the way to go.
Is the way to go. And before we conclude, Grace, currently the paternity testing services seem to be somehow expensive. I think it is more than $100. No, yes, $100 per test. Did you, in your submission, suggest that possibly government should intervene and make these services available to everyone?
Yes, government should intervene and make them possible and available to everyone. Yes, that's my suggestion, because again, as you can see, these tests are even making families more poorer. If a woman has asked for school fees of 100,000, then you rush and get a loan and take the children for paternity test. Now, is this empowering the family, or it's making the family a little more even poorer? Yes.
All right. One of the suggestions from the legislators is that paternity tests should be conducted right away when the child is born, and the services should be taken to maternity health centers. Do you agree or not?
I agree. However, we still have, beyond that, we need to strengthen the other linkages to this. Because just doing that paternity test without handling the root cause, why are women having these children who don't belong to these men? That's a question we need to answer as well. But also, on the other hand, we know that women in this country have kept children to husbands who are not their biological children for many decades. And even I know of women who don't have their own, but the man keeps on bringing. And even if they have their own, the men keep on bringing, and the women are understanding. They will even sacrifice and leave to like provide for their own 100% and provide for the man's children. So this narrative is changing, because now the whole results are bearing a woman's face in an ugly way.
Okay.
But women have done a lot to really shield all the children the men have brought to them. That's why I'm saying either way, whether we have the regulations, whether we have the law, we have to get back to the roots.
Thank you so much. And finally from me, Grace, do you support this school of thought from a section of the society that why do we go for DNA tests? I mean, why don't we go the traditional way? Why can't we leave it to that? We keep our children, we look after them, and life goes on. In just one statement.
For me, I like peace. So I would let the decision to the person, to this specific person. If you want to go, please go. If you don't want, please stay. But either way, you need support.
Thank you so much, our viewers. This is the Limelight, and we have to appreciate Grace Nachirija Rwanga. She works with Chapter 4 Empowerment and Rights Uganda. This is an NGO that also looks at, advocates for the rights of people. And we now have to wait. Government is engaging stakeholders. Possibly they will come up with a regulation, and this will give guidance on how DNA tests or paternity tests will be conducted. Let's catch up next week. Thank you so much for being with us. Good evening and a good week ahead.